Now, buddy, this might be the most unlucky airline in the world. Let me introduce to you to the AirACT cargo airline. This Turkish cargo airline has one airplane now, the Boeing 747, well, but they used to have a lot more of them. Why don't they have any more of them? Because most of them crashed. Generally, whenever you see pictures, this for example is the Tango Charlie ACR, you end up Googling the registration, and there's some Aviation Safety Network article about this airline, about them somehow managing to crash the airplane. Tango Charlie MCT. Oh, what a surprise. There's another one. And you can almost spin the wheels of things that could have happened here. A severe long-distance tail strike. Oh my God, that is an insane tails. Holy, how'd you manage? I wonder what happened to TCACM right here. And of course, Aviation Safety Network. What in the world happened here? Oh yeah, they lost quite a lot of flaps on landing. Holy, how does that happen? How about TCMCL? That didn't have any livery on it. Oh no. This airplane now has a whole Wikipedia article about its tragical crash in Kyrgyzstan. 39 fatalities, 35 of which were residents on the ground. They also used to operate A300 airplanes. You know, these Airbus cargo ones. TCACB, please don't tell me anything bad. And of course. Oh no. Oh, that airplane is written off. You know, it seems like every few years ago, the ACT Airlines shut down their website to make it turn into only a press statement. And we all know what happened just last morning at Hong Kong International Airport here. One of AirACT's two remaining Boeing 747s, the Tango Charlie ACF, veered off the runway, crashed into a patrol car that was standing on the road behind the perimeter fence, and ended up coming to a halt in the ocean. This is definitely a very broken 747. All four crew were rescued and taken to hospital, but two occupants in the patrol car sadly passed away from the impact. And now everyone is wondering, how in the world does a relatively modern 747-400, though this plane is 32 years old but could still fly around passengers on other airlines, end up veering off so far of the runway? Especially because, you know, normal concerns like weather weren't necessarily a factor. Let's take a look at this flight and talk about what could have happened, though it is very much unknown yet. But let's change to 7 hours before, when this airplane departed out of Dubai, but certainly not from Dubai International Airport, the DXB, but from Al Maktoum International Airport, which is south of the city, also called the Logistics City. This is where all the cargo airplanes take off, and in fact, it will be the future airport of Dubai because they're just expanding it and making it their main airport in a long time running. Either way, the 747 by AirACT takes off at around 5 p.m. local time here. But whoa, Swiss, when it says AirACT here on the airplane, but clearly Emirates Sky Cargo Flight 9788 on Wikipedia, how does any of this make sense? Well, yeah, AirACT is a charter airline that basically operates scheduled and charter air cargo services for other airlines. For example, this Saudi Arabia cargo 747 also veered off a runway, but it was operated by AirACT, was their airplane. Basically, I guess Emirates had some cargo laying around in Hong Kong, the destination, and they said, hey, AirACT, can you fly over there quickly, to pick it up? Yeah, this is one of those flights that happen all around the world with passenger planes as well, where it always says they fly on behalf of Emirates. Either way, this airplane is light, nothing in there, which is always good for a cargo airliner. They always have great performance, don't need a lot of runway to take off, and can be very nice and nimble, and they don't overrun. Well, maybe they can have a runway excursion. Either way, 7 hours after departure, they end up on approach to Hong Kong's newer airport, the Chek Lap Kok, which is built and is kind of still in the process of building here on this artificial island. And what they have is extremely long runways. We nearly have 3,800 meters of runway on all of them, and the 747 is assigned to land on the north runway, runway 07 left. Now, by the time this airplane comes in for landing on this north runway, it's 3:55 local time in the morning. It's very much dark. All we see is a Christmas tree of runway lights and loads of cargo ships, and of course us as a cargo plane. Now, something you definitely can't say is that the weather was perfect. As you can see, I've got a sort of synchronized live weather, and even our plane shows 20 knots of wind component. That's sort of coming from the left, a bit of crosswind indeed. And that's what the airport reported around the time of this airplane landed. We've got winds all gusting all the way to 21 knots, which is not too bad. The skies are relatively clear, and the 747 has the ability to land in even more crosswind, even more wind component. No trouble. Here we come in though, and we see our landing light be able to illuminate the runway. Let's go and grab a little bit and touch down.
Minimums.
Okay. And now this is where it gets really interesting. The airplane slows down to around 100 knots. And then, as we might know, the airplane starts veering heavily to the left. First exiting the runway and then crashing into a patrol car with round about 60 knots. It overran and shot right into the ocean, with a patrol car that was hit tragically stuck to the airplane and being also thrown out into the ocean. And so of course now people are wondering, how in the world can this happen? Relatively modern airplane at one of the safest airports in the world. It becomes very tempting to speculate and have your own hypotheses. But sure, we learned from the tragic Air India crash in June this year that sometimes it's very pointless and but the thing is, big airliners have always and will always veer off runways very regularly. In fact, on a yearly basis. Nope, this airplane veered off a runway to the left, and it isn't the first and it won't be the last. And yeah, there's always two reasons. How does an airplane come off its path horizontally? Well, it's always by forces that would be sending the airplane forward, not doing so. Either by asymmetrical thrust or asymmetrical braking. That at least on a dry runway. So for example, something could have happened is a reverse thrust failure. So that means the airplane touched down. Oh my god, probably not as hard as this right here. It ended up deploying reverse thrust right here as we do now, but only the left reverse thrust comes out, whereas the right one doesn't, and that obviously caused this plane, as we see now, to deviate. And in fact, do this. Yeah, there could have been issues in the engine control software. There could also just be issues with the engine number 3 and 4 reverse thrust itself. Even though for two engines to have the reverse thrust fail at the same time, that's very unlikely. But right now, all 4 engines are somehow submerged in the ocean and have to be picked up to check them. Either way, this is one possibility, and it is what leads to many of these runway excursions. This one, for example, pilot claimed that an engine had a power surge which caused the excursion via asymmetric thrust. This other ACT runway excursion event also happened because of an engine failure. That is also very likely to have happened. Yeah, you know, what if you're landing and suddenly your engine number 4, for example, fails? Which in case of a reverse thrust means that you automatically veer off to the left. And I guess in the dark, you might not be able to see it. Yeah, 4th engine failed, we immediately have quite the roll to the left. Very possible. And now we're in the ocean yet again. Now the second thing that could have happened is something wrong with a landing gear. This is another very big possibility, although there's no reports of, for example, the landing gear, collapsing at any point after the touchdown, which obviously also would lead into a very bad situation, although this could have been kind of steerable. No, that's not good. It could have very well also been brakes. Maybe a brake failure in one of the left landing gears, though that I don't really believe, because after all, we're an empty 747 and we're at almost 4,000 meter long runway. You wouldn't really need much of your wheel brakes here. That obviously also depends, but it's very much a possibility. So for example, if we, speed up to around 120 knots and then try to fully brake, obviously we end up very much veering to the left. This will be very much an interesting investigation as to how another Boeing could have veered off the runway. It probably won't be taking long though to get a first glimpse on the cause of this. After all, the pilots are in recovery. My biggest condolences to the ground crew killed, 41-year-old driver and a 30-year-old passenger. And thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow as always. Good night.